Welcome back to the Furality Sylva interview series. I'm Stitcharoo. I have Schlick here with me, and we're gonna do the deep dive. So Schlick, what's your hardware software setup like?
Yeah, so for VR, I've got my DDJ 1000 and I use Rekordbox. I think it's one of the best kind of options for getting really dang close to the full like professional setup of having like CDJ 3000s and a mixer and whatnot, and it works great in VR. You know, I've got the full body setup, and then hilariously, I just put my headset on a hat. I just wear like a flat brimmed hat and put the headset on top of it so I can actually see my controller. And then I have like a little setup I've hacked together where I can pretty much hit some buttons that will allow me to mute all the audio in the room so that I can speak through the setup when I'm VR DJing. And that's kind of how it all works. Yeah, it's a lot of fun when it works, and it's a lot of frustration when it does not. But that's the nature of doing this kind of VR stuff. And yeah, yes, that's it.
Absolutely. The flat brim hat, that's clever. I'm gonna have to steal that.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw someone on Twitter do it, and I was like, oh man, I should be doing that instead of trying to look through the little nose hole in my headset.
Oh, constantly like
it was rough. Yeah, it was rough. I can't do that. Some people, I'm impressed by people who manage to like actually have the headset on and either like learned all their controller or are like using a pass-through camera. I just put it above my
head. How do you deal with the delay between like the music that's coming out in the world and your mixing?
Yeah, so I generally mute the VR chat world and just like have the sound coming out, and like if it's through Twitch there's like a 30 or 40 second delay, and I just kind of account for that when I'm DJing and I'm like looking at the crowd and crowd reading and stuff like that. I'm probably 30 or 40 seconds ahead of what they're hearing, and that can kind of help me figure out what's going on. VR CDN does a much better job being much quicker, but I've kind of just I like to mute the crowd in general when I'm DJing because I want to get more involved in the music, and if there's people talking whatever, I don't want to get distracted, so that helps kind of me handle that.
When I DJ live, because of the delay, I'm always like, I sing and dance. It's kind of like, you know, one of my MOs, and I'm always like way off because the delay.
Kind of like time the drop, and you're like 30 seconds, and it's like, yeah.
So I'm all like, I'm super hyped right now. You'll get this in like 30 seconds. Woo!
Yeah. You'll see where I'm at soon. Yeah.
Step to my level, homies. Oh man, let's roll into the next question of what inspired you to start DJing?
Yeah, that's a story. So I found EDM on the internet when I was in high school, and I'm gonna age myself here because the first EDM show I went to was Deadmau5.
Okay.
Back when I was like 16, and Skrillex was opening, and no one had heard of Skrillex yet. Like he was just showed up, and I was like, who's this guy? And he turned out to be a big deal, apparently. So like. It was, so I got into it from there, and I went off to college, I went to University of Michigan, and I found a group there called MEDMA, which was like the Electronic Dance Music Association, the Michigan Electronic Dance Music Association. And they would go to Detroit every weekend because we were in Ann Arbor, and so we'd drive 40-50 minutes to Detroit and go to these things. And that's where I found out about techno, because Detroit is like the center of techno, like the birthplace of techno. It's still the best city to experience techno. The government has an official techno day. Like it's built into Detroit's like blood and culture. And like I started going to these things that were like, you know, just at like warehouses, like semi legit, some of them not so legit, and meeting all these people. And that's where I started meeting people from LGBTQ backgrounds, from diverse like racial backgrounds. That's where I started realizing like how this music was bringing people together and like really like pushing them to, you know, be who they want to be and cast off all the societal rules around them. And I really want to be part of that. So they had a CDJ 1000, a DGM 800 mixer, and I learned on that, and I started playing whatever I could, like house parties, frat parties. There's just one little club in Ann Arbor that I would play at in the basement, and it was like techno in the basement and top 40 upstairs. And yeah, and I did that for a while, and then I left college and thought I just kind of had to give up on it. I thought like it was sort of like, well, that's it. Like I didn't for like 6 years, and then like COVID happened, and I found VR, and I found the furries, and then I found Furality and the whole DJ scene here, and like Well, I met this guy named Kits, who's one of the other DJs. And Kits, okay, Kittia, I talked to him because I saw his performance Furality, and I was like, that was amazing. Like, I had no idea people were doing this in VR. I had no idea people were performing and creating music and DJing. And he's like, do you want to do it? I was like, what? You said you DJ. Do you want to like come perform at a club in VR? And I was like, what? And so I started playing at the Banger Hangar, which is like semi-defunct now, rest in peace. And now and from there it just blew up, and I've got back into producing music. I'm doing VR shows. I'm doing Furality. I'm playing at like furry cons. I'm playing at FWA coming up, and it's just completely just changed my life and inspired me to make and perform music again. And like, I mean, techno to me is like liberation. It's like freeing yourself of societal constraints. It's being you, and like it just so meshes with everything furry is to me. Like, it's the same deal, and so I just want to mash the two together in some bizarre Frankenstein combination and bring it to the furry world. That's what I want to do.
For sure. I also kind of want to say rest in major key. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you mentioned Kits. What are DJs that you look up to? Like, do you have mentors and people that inspire you?
Yeah, so in this whole little weird niche furry VR DJ world we've got going on, Kits and Strawberry Potato were the ones who like I met, and like I joined like the Sunday Service squad because they were like, I pretty much was like, please let me play, and they were like, okay, you can come, like, and like so like I those are the two that really like inspired me the most and like pushed me to like really like you can do this, like you can perform, you can make music, you can play live, like here in VR and in the physical world. Another one who's a huge inspiration to furry scene is Loprov. Like,
Loprov,
I don't know how he does the stuff he does.
No one knows how Loprov does.
It's black magic. Love him, love his sets. Like outside of that, like in the like general techno world, IO was my like biggest inspiration. Like, rest in peace. Right, like it's still sad for me to like talk about that because he was he was trying to bring techno to a bigger audience in the US, and that's like it's the biggest inspiration to me, is like, how can we bring this kind of music to more people? How can we help them understand it? And to me, that's what he was really trying to do. Everyone like in the original Detroit scene, like the Belleville 3, Jeff Mills, some of the, like those are people who just, techno wouldn't exist without them. And then like I think I Hate Models, IHM is another producer DJ who I love because he just brings a stupid amount of energy to his sets. Like, he's just like constantly moving and bobbing and just being nuts in the decks whenever he performs. And I just think that's like it's so cool to watch. So yeah, I could keep listing DJs, producers for like hours. You probably don't want me to do that, so I'll stop here.
No, like the furry VR ones you mentioned, all super good beans. Here's an interesting question that's a little off script. What would you say the difference would be between the pure techno that you spin versus other styles of electronic music?
Yeah, that's you could go deep into the whole like what defines electronic music genre and like what gets into it.
Sure.
Techno, I think, like, is a lot about simplicity. Like, there's a lot of like minimalism in techno that like comes through in a really loud sound system, comes through in a club, that I find particularly interesting. That's been a part of it since the very beginning. The repetitive nature, the layering, like it's not like you like layer sounds for a long time to build up, and like you can drop tracks and others of that, like without getting into specific like like Wikipedia definition of like there's 4 kick drums and there's a hi-hat and every like whatever, like it's like it's to me is it's very simple and repetitive, and it doesn't like it, and so when people start listen to it, I don't really get it, and then they go to a big loud club where someone is layering this stuff for hours and people are like completely vibing with it, and that to me is like when it becomes like, oh, I get it, it's techno. Like that's like that's what sets it apart. That's what I find so fascinating about it. That's why I love it and want to perform it.
Killer. Yeah, there's a lot to be. It's kind of, I want to say it's a interesting long form genre.
Yeah.
where it just
Yeah,
goes
absolutely.
on and you just kind of ride with it, and you're taken more so on a
Yeah.
journey than an individual track basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings us to a last question, and this last question is something that at Furality we kind of hold dear because we're always looking to reach out to more people. What advice or even maybe tips and tricks do you have for people looking to start DJing?
Yeah. I mean, tip one, learn to beat match. Like learn to beat match. Like learn the beat match, learn a tempo match. That's just like step one. And like make sure you can do it by ear and make sure you can do it like without even thinking about it by ear because like the sync button will fail you and it will fail you when you need it most. Like and like you if you can't beat match by ear, it's a problem. So like that's the first thing. Beyond the like fundamentals of like DJing technical wise, like practice like just like screwing up. Like I feel like people like will like practice DJing and then they'll like mess up and they'll hit stop and like stop. Like you're gonna do that when you're doing something live. Like something's gonna go wrong. Just like fix it and keep going like because the show must go on. Like that's a big one. And then like have fun when you're performing. I think a lot of people just like get really in the zone and like stare at their equipment or a screen and don't like look up ever. And it's like interact with the crowd, like look at them, smile at them, have fun, like jump around. Like think of what like rock stars do. You don't see like big name rock stars just like standing there not moving while they play guitar. They get into the music, they put on a performance. Like have fun when you do it and put on a performance and connect with the crowd and then like be a good person. That's like the best advice I have to like being successful is be good to other people and like support them and do what you can to be kind and you'll realize that has gone more towards being successful I feel like than any kind of like technical skill I've ever had, I think. Yeah.
Super great answers. It's been an absolute delight having you hang out, Schlick.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been a
Absolutely
pleasure being here.
excited.
Yeah.
So thank
Yeah.
you for taking the time to interview.
Yeah, thank you too.
Eee. And from all of us at Furality Sylva in the club department, we'll catch you at the next interview. Bye.